Hi everyone, this is the story of my abusive mother-in-law and my useless husband who never protected me. I'm using fake names because I don't want to be identified. Sharing my story is one thing, but dealing with real-life drama is another, so I'd rather stay anonymous. Let's say my name is Peyton, my husband is Grant, and my mother-in-law is Joanne. My grandma, Lily, is the only reason I'm still here today. Let me start from the beginning. Grant was a pretty good boyfriend, and I was deeply in love with him, ready to marry him. So when he proposed, I said yes right away. But after that, everything changed. I started noticing red flags. Grant and his mother were extremely close, and it was clear that Joanne controlled him. Joanne was the one who started causing problems. She lived with us and depended on her son for everything. One day, she came to me with some papers and said, "Peyton, you need to sign these papers right now. It's better for you if you do." I asked, "What are these papers, Joanne?" She replied, "This is a prenup that you both need to sign. It says that in case of a divorce, neither of you can claim anything from each other. Sign it now." I was shocked and asked, "Did you really make a prenup without even talking to us? This is humiliating, Joanne. Why would you do that?" She said, "I did this so you can't take my son's money if you divorce. You earn less than him, and this house is his. We can't trust you to not take everything." I was furious and said, "This is insane, Joanne. I'm not the bad person you think I am. I'm not signing this just like that. I'm insulted that you didn't even talk to us about it." To my surprise, Grant said, "Actually, I know about the prenup. It's not a big deal, Peyton. If you're not with me for money, you shouldn't have a problem signing it." I was shocked that Grant and Joanne discussed this without telling me. No, I wasn't with Grant for his money. I didn't earn much, but I had a big inheritance coming my way, which I hadn't told Grant about yet. Grant and I fought for days, and Joanne kept insulting me for not signing the papers. I eventually went to my grandma for help. She listened to everything and then said, "Honey, are you sure you want to marry this man? I don't think he's the right one for you. You two aren't even married yet, and he's already making plans with his mother against you." I replied, "It's just this one problem, Grandma. I really love Grant, and he loves me too. I can't imagine marrying anyone else. He's a good man." Grandma said, "If you've made up your mind, then go ahead and sign the prenup. I'll have my lawyer look it over, but I have one request. Never tell them that your grandparents are millionaires. I don't want them to know." I said, "I haven't told them anything yet, Grandma, but why don't you want me to say it?" She replied, "I understand things better than you, Peyton. You're seeing them through rose-colored glasses. Your grandfather and I worked hard to build this fortune, and I don't want anyone taking advantage of you and your money." I assured her, "Grandma, you don't have to worry. I won't tell them anything since you asked me not to. Besides, Grant is a good man, and he'd never do that. If his mother gets out of hand, I'm sure he'll protect me." But I was wrong. Grant turned out to be a horrible man, and his mother was even worse than I knew. I gave in and signed the prenup, and later realized it was a wise decision. As soon as we got married, Joanne started to abuse me regularly. Even after signing the prenup, she verbally and sometimes physically abused me. I'm too ashamed to talk about everything she did, but there's one incident I need to share because it was the turning point in my marriage. One day, after I got home from work, Joanne stormed into my room with a smirk on her face. She handed me a big bag of clothes and demanded that I wash them. I didn't protest because I was used to her behavior. I knew that if I refused, she'd tell Grant, and they'd both verbally abuse me. It was routine. So I picked up the heavy bag even though it was hard for me. While I was walking down the hall, Joanne tripped me and I fell. I hurt my ankle and screamed in pain. Joanne just laughed and walked away. After putting some ice on my ankle, I called Grant and told him, "Grant, I fell and hurt my ankle. Your mother tripped me today." I had taken her abuse for a long time and finally told Grant, "You need to do something. She's crossed the line." But Grant didn't believe me. He said, "Don't make up lies about Mom, Peyton. She would never do something like that. You just want her out of the house and don't want to do your chores. Stop lying and trying to defame her." I pleaded, "I'm not lying, Grant. Please believe me." But he replied, "Don't waste my time, Peyton. Go back and do the chores Mom gave you. I don't want to hear another complaint." Then he hung up on me. Grant never stood up for me and always acted like I was the problem. I usually kept quiet because I didn't want him to leave me. But this time, I'd had enough. I just couldn't take it anymore. I was secretly seeing a therapist with my grandma's help, and their abuse was becoming too much to handle. It was then that I realized I needed to get out. To make things worse, Joanne sent me nasty texts, saying I deserved what she did and that Grant would never speak against her. I was furious and decided I needed revenge. The opportunity came when my grandma passed away. I was heartbroken but relieved because she had been in a lot of pain. I stayed strong, knowing she was finally free and reunited with my granddad. Grant didn't help me at all when my grandma died. He didn't even show up to the funeral, but when he found out I inherited $250 million, he was in shock and suddenly started being extra nice to me. When we got home the next day, another surprise was waiting for me. Joanne was at the foot of my bed, looking unusually sweet. It was creepy to find her in my room, watching me while I slept. I couldn't believe what was happening. I asked, "What are you doing here, Joanne? No one told me you were coming today, and why were you staring at me while I was sleeping? That's really creepy." She replied, "Oh, I came early to help you with the chores. I made you some tea, and it's right beside your bed. I know how much you love tea, so I got a special batch for you." I said, "You still haven't answered why you were in my room while I was sleeping. It's honestly creepy, Joanne." She said, "I was trying to massage your feet, Peyton. I know you hurt your feet carrying my laundry that day. They must be so sore, so I thought I could massage them for you." I was shocked and said, "You literally tripped me that day, Joanne. How dare you come here and try to massage my feet? Don't you have any shame?" She brushed it off, saying, "Oh, don't be so dramatic. It was an honest mistake. I didn't know you would fall or that the load was heavy. But I've already massaged your foot to make up for it, didn't I?" I was furious and said, "You think massaging my foot will make up for all the abuse? You're insane, Joanne. Get out of my room." "I don't want to see your face right now," she replied sweetly. "All right, I'll be in the kitchen making you breakfast. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything. I'll also make sure Grant has everything he needs. You just take your time and freshen up." Then she left the room, acting like everything was fine. Her sudden change in attitude made my head spin, even as I lay there in bed. I felt like she had invaded my privacy and was acting crazy. Money can make people do strange things, and Joanne proved it. Grant must have told her to avoid my inheritance, which is why she came to visit. But neither Grant nor Duran knew that none of them would get my money. I made sure of that. I got out of bed and dressed in my best clothes. It was my day for revenge, and I wanted to look my best. My therapy had been working well, and I finally had the confidence to stand up for myself. I went to the kitchen with my bag, which had some important papers I needed to send out today. I guess you can tell what I was about to do. I found Grant and Duran in the kitchen. They looked very happy and were whispering to each other. When they saw me, their smiles got even bigger. Grant pulled out a chair for me while Jan prepared a plate. I said, "Why did you make breakfast today? I could have done it myself. You didn't have to go to the trouble." Grant replied, "That's nonsense. I'm happy to do this for you, Peyton. It's no big deal." Jan added, "It's just breakfast. My mom can help you from now on. Once we sell the house and buy a mansion, I'll find a housekeeper. Until then, my mom can take care of everything." I said, "You think buying my medicine is a waste of money, but hiring a housekeeper is okay. How do you plan to buy a mansion? Have you been robbing a bank?" Grant replied, "Don't be ridiculous. We have plenty of money now. You just got a huge inheritance from your grandmother." Grant was right. "Finally, we're millionaires now," he said. "We don't have to worry about money anymore. We can do whatever we want now." Jan said, "Yeah, I've been thinking about quitting my job. Maybe we can take a vacation and have some fun. What do you think?" I laughed loudly at what they said. I couldn't believe my ears. It had only been a day since I received my inheritance, and they were already making plans. They really thought I would just give them the money and let them do whatever they wanted. Did they think a day of fake kindness could erase years of abuse? Joanne and Grant looked uncomfortable with my laughter. They probably realized how ridiculous their plans sounded, thinking I would magically forgive them. After laughing for a few seconds, I said, "My God, it's been just one day since I got my inheritance, and look how much you've changed. Money really does make a difference, doesn't it?" Grant replied, Let's not dwell on the past. We had no idea you were so lucky. We would have treated you better if we knew. Joanne added, yes, you shouldn't hide things from your husband and in-laws, Peyton. That was very sneaky of you. Anyway, what should we do with all this money? I was thinking about buying a house in the Caribbean. Grant chimed in, don't just say house, say mansion or villa. We could even go for a penthouse. That would suit our status better. We're millionaires after all. All my friends will be so jealous of me. I listened to their chatter and then casually took out the documents I had hidden in my folder. Joanne and Grant looked at me expectantly, as if I was giving them papers that would make the money theirs. But they were in for a surprise. Holding the papers, I said, let me correct you guys. We're not millionaires. I am a millionaire now. The money is mine. I got it as my inheritance. Grant said, yes, you got the money, but we share everything. We're married after all, so you should share your money with me. Joanne added, yes, and as your mother-in-law and only surviving family, you should share the money with me too. We're family after all. You're like a daughter to me, just like Grant is my son. I replied, it's funny how I've suddenly become your daughter. Yesterday I was just the woman your son married. Anyway, don't get too excited. We won't be family anymore. Not that we ever really were. Grant looked confused. What do you mean, Peyton? I'm your mother-in-law, so I'm family. I said, how can you be my mother-in-law if I'm not married to your son anymore? If Grant loses his title as my husband, you'll be nothing to me. Grant asked, what do you mean, Peyton? Why won't I be your husband anymore? What's going on? I calmly replied, I filed for divorce. I did it the day after my grandma died. I won't be staying with you anymore, Grant. You're a terrible husband and don't deserve to be one. I threw the divorce papers on the table. Grant and Jan read the papers, and their eyes widened in shock. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. They looked at each other, worried. I guess they never thought I'd have the strength to file for divorce. Grant said, what is this, Peyton? Why have you filed for divorce? This doesn't make any sense. You think I'm too weak to leave an abusive marriage and stay stuck in it forever? Why are you surprised, Grant? I told you this was coming. I told you the very day Joanne tripped me. My God, why are you still stuck in the past? I've already apologized for that, and I can't change what happened. You need to be more forgiving. This isn't a big enough problem to cause a divorce. Mom has already made up for it. So Joanne, you admit you tripped me and all you say is to get over it? Listen, I'm divorcing you, and you won't get a cent of my inheritance. I can't believe I love someone as awful as you, Grant, and I'm ashamed I tried to impress a monster like you, Joanne. But this abuse ends now. We are definitely getting a divorce, and we can do it the easy way or the hard way. Suddenly, Grant and Joanne looked very angry. They didn't like that I called them out on their behavior. They knew I was serious since I had already filed for divorce. It wasn't a threat to get what I wanted. I meant it. But now that I had a lot of money, they said, what's the point of divorcing me, Peyton? You have more money than me. But your inheritance is a marital asset, so I'll get half of it anyway. You might get half, but most of it will go to the lawyers, I replied. Did you forget about the prenup you and your mother forced me to sign? I'm sure my dear mother-in-law can remind you. She was adamant that we sign a prenup. It suddenly hit them that they had messed up. They had no idea I'd become a millionaire one day. The prenup was supposed to protect them because they knew no sane woman would stay with them after their abuse. But this time they just played themselves. The prenup was a long time ago, they said. I'll talk to a lawyer and see what we can do. We won't let you walk away with all that money. You're doing this to threaten us. You can't do anything to us, Peyton. We'll take your money and do what we please with it. So you plan to fight me in court? I asked. Don't worry, Peyton. We'll make this hard for you. You can't get divorced without my signature, remember that. Really, Grant? You're going to make this difficult for me? That's not a problem. I'm prepared for everything. I have some leverage of my own. What do you mean, Peyton? Joanne asked. Joanne, remember how you admitted to tripping me and abusing me in those texts? I'll use them to file a report with the police. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? No. You won't do that to me. I'll delete all the texts. Don't worry, Joanne. I've already saved them and sent them to some friends. Trust me, I'm fully capable of reporting you to the police. I can also show how Grant knew and did nothing to protect me. It'll be a tough battle for you in divorce court." Joanne and Grant immediately started apologizing, realizing the trouble they were in. They thought I had let go of the incident, but I was just waiting for the right moment. Now, Joanne and Grant were in deep trouble and didn't know what to do. I took the divorce papers and left the house, planning to collect my things the next day. Grant and Joanne tried to stop me, saying, "Don't walk away from us, Peyton. Let's sit and talk about this. We can handle the situation like adults without making any rash decisions." "Where will you go anyway? Let's talk about it." "I'm moving into my grandmother's house. It's already in my name. I'll be living there while waiting for Grant to decide on the divorce. I'm taking the papers with me so you can't damage them and make me file again. As for my things, I've taken pictures of everything, so don't even think about damaging or getting rid of anything." Grant and Joanne kept trying to stop me, but I had already called a friend who was waiting for me outside. I got into a car and drove off. Grant and Joanne stood at the door, staring at us the whole time. After arriving at my new place, I contacted a moving company to bring my things from the house. In the months that followed, Grant and Joanne tried their best to change my mind. I kept reminding them about going to the cops because Grant didn't sign the divorce papers. Grant did talk to a lawyer, who told him that the prenup was solid and that he had no way out. After being threatened by me multiple times, Grant was forced to sign the divorce papers. He didn't want his mom in jail, and he knew I would never give him another chance. Grant and Joanne are not talking to each other now. Why? Because Grant didn't take the divorce well and started blaming Joanne for causing problems between us. He was sure Joanne was the reason he missed out on being a millionaire. After countless fights, he ended up kicking her out with nothing. Since Joanne lived off Grant's money, she was left homeless and broke. Last I heard, Joanne was in a homeless woman's shelter with no idea what to do. I made sure everyone knew what horrible people Joanne and Grant were, so they were isolated from others. No one talks to them anymore. As for me, I'm enjoying my new life and watching the aftermath. I'm still living at my grandmother's place because it holds sentimental value to me. I donated some of my inheritance to women's help centers and plan to do more. The rest of the money is invested and secured for my future family. I'm still working at my old job because I don't want to sit idle. Life is good so far, and I'm hopeful I'll meet someone who deserves me.
I've been saving up a lot lately. My name's Cassie, and I can't help but smirk at my phone with a sneaky laugh. I'm 29 now, married for 2 years, and working hard as a housewife. Some of my coworkers think my smirk is weird, but I can't stop because I'm so close to saving enough money to build my dream home. The balance in my bank account is almost there. My husband Max and I don't have kids yet, but we've always planned to have some once we have our own home. I wanted to stay single a bit longer, but at 27, I fell in love with Max, who's a bit older than me. We work at the same company, but in different departments, which can be awkward, but I've stuck with it because finding a new job would mean less money. Now, after a lot of hard work, I'm almost ready to buy our dream home. It's been quite a journey. Life with my husband is smooth sailing, and our savings are growing steadily. We're content with our ordinary jobs and our plan to buy a simple home. Finding joy in this regular life is what makes me happiest. But there's one big hiccup, my relationship with my in-laws. It's the toughest part of being married. When I come home from work to our small rented apartment, seeing my in-laws' shoes at the door instantly drains me. They seem to be here again today. I let out a heavy sigh. I'm home. Oh, you're back. The one who responds isn't my husband Max, but my mother-in-law, comfortably seated on our cramped sofa. Good evening. Do you always come home this late? Our in-laws live just 3 train stops away, which is too close for comfort. That's why my mother-in-law often drops by without considering the inconvenience. You're home late again. What about Max's dinner? This happens too often. No sympathy for my long work hours, just complaints from my mother-in-law. I'm sorry, work was hectic. I'll cook something now. Max has been home for a while. Cassie, aren't you a bit inefficient? Even though Max and I work at the same company, our jobs are very different. Max rarely has overtime in his department, but he earns less. My department, however, is crucial to the company, often requiring me to work late. That's why I earn the highest salary in the company. I never bring this up myself, and I wish Max would, but maybe his pride gets in the way. He never speaks up. Right now, he's just quietly drinking his tea. Even though we both work, I feel like Max could pitch in a bit with the housework, but he steadfastly avoids it. Whether it's shopping, laundry, cleaning, preparing the bath, or cooking. When he gets home from work, he's either glued to the TV or absorbed in his phone. Oblivious to all this, my mother-in-law, as usual, came over to criticize me today. It's okay. I already had dinner with Max. Oh, you've eaten? We had some amazing sushi. I decided to treat Max to something nice for a change. I see. I was taken aback when I heard the name of the sushi restaurant. Isn't that an upscale place? Though surprised, since my mother-in-law footed the bill, I decided to let it slide and started heading to the kitchen to make my own dinner. But my mother-in-law stopped me. Cassie, I hate to ask, but could you do me a favor? I'm a bit short on cash this month. Could you lend me some? Just as I suspected, my mother-in-law often asks for money like this. I wanted to say, hold on a second. That doesn't seem right. You went to a fancy sushi restaurant, didn't you? And last month, you said you were struggling and begged for money. I reluctantly gave you $300, even though we're also tight on cash. And the month before that, and the one before that. Aren't you being a bit careless? But I held back and managed a strained smile. I'm sorry, we're all having a tough time this month. Can't you do anything for your struggling parents? You're the cold one, not me. Who's really cold here? Your son, who neglects his duties at home, leaves his wife alone, and goes out to eat sushi. Seems pretty cold to me. Finally, my husband Max chimed in. Cassie's mom is in a tough spot. Can't you lend her a hand? Oh, so we're really struggling this month, huh? Well, Mom, I'll help you out. Max sighed and pulled $500 from his wallet, handing it to his mother. Max is such a kind and wonderful son, unlike Cassie. I was stunned as my mother-in-law shot me a glare and headed for the door. I thought she was leaving, but then she turned back and glared at me again. Max, if you ever want to divorce your money-hungry wife, you're always welcome to come back home. I'll keep that in mind. With a slam, my mother-in-law left. What was that all about? I turned to Max, who was already lounging on the sofa with his phone. I confronted him. Why did you give her $500? If we have that much extra cash, why not put it towards our household expenses? I had my reasons for asking. While Max pays the rent for this apartment, that's the extent of his contributions. I cover all the bills like utilities, phone, groceries, and other expenses because Max refuses to chip in. What do you mean? I pay the rent, don't I? You expect more than just that. You're so greedy. That's Max's usual way of avoiding financial responsibility. I'm taking care of everything else, including the phone bill you're holding. It's understandable you earn more, but I only make a bit more than your salary. We're barely making ends meet with our expenses and savings. Oh, you have enough to save? Then you should be fine. Suddenly, he reached out his hand when I mentioned savings. What's this for? I gave my mom $500, and now I'm broke. Can you lend me some cash? What? Seriously, this is unbelievable. Despite keeping almost all of his salary except for rent, Max always claims he's short on money every month. He used to justify it by saying, a man needs to socialize and entertain, and I reluctantly went along. But not today. Why should I foot the bill for you and your mom's sushi? Why am I responsible for that? It's a way to honor parents. What about me? Neither Max nor my mother-in-law ever show appreciation. It feels like I'm just a paycheck to them. And what was that about considering divorce? Exactly what it sounds like. If you keep being so tight-fisted, I might have to consider it. With that, Max locked himself in the bedroom. He even went as far as locking the bedroom door. In our tiny apartment, there aren't many places to go. With the bedroom inaccessible, my only option was to sleep on the sofa. These days, amid all the stress, The only solace I find is in checking my bank account balance. After enduring yet another round of sarcasm and financial demands from my mother-in-law, I'd open my phone before starting my overtime shift at work. Logging into my savings account, which I've had since I was single, I thought everything was on track for our dream home. That is, until I saw something that made me freeze. "What's going on?" I exclaimed, abruptly apologizing to my boss before rushing home. "Max, are you here?" "Oh, what's going on? You're home early today." Max looked surprised. Before him lay an assortment of what looked like expensive sushi, and he wasn't alone. "Welcome home, Cassie. We're just visiting." Both in-laws were present, not just my mother-in-law, but my father-in-law too. I couldn't help but wonder why they were here. "What's happening?" "We're having sushi." "Want some, Cassie?" "Sushi? Where did this come from?" "Oh, we had some extra cash," they replied. Pressing for more details, both Max and my in-laws seemed taken aback. I grabbed Max's collar, as if to keep him from escaping, and he reluctantly handed me something. It was the bank book for the account I had just checked online. Flipping it open, I was left speechless when I saw the transaction history. "What's going on? How did you withdraw this?" I demanded, my anger rising. "Well, I just guessed the PIN, and it worked. Lucky me, right?" Max replied casually, showing no remorse for taking out a large sum of money without my consent. I was furious and on the verge of exploding at Max for his nonchalant attitude. "How dare you take my money without asking?" The funds I had diligently saved since my single days had been withdrawn without my knowledge. "Come on, we're married, aren't we? What's mine is yours. Don't be so uptight. This is the savings I've worked hard for since before we got married. Give it back. Relax, Cassie. What's yours is mine, naturally," Max said dismissively. Living off Max's support while secretly saving such a large amount of money. "You're so greedy," Max accused, his tone accusatory. "Yeah, exactly. You should appreciate me more. Who do you think you're depending on? It's unbelievable. I feel like I'm alone in this. Don't joke around. Taking my money like this is no different from theft. Give it back. Who's joking?" Max snapped, clearly startled by the accusation. Annoyed, he continued, "Don't forget, I'm the one paying the rent here. And I have plenty of social obligations to fulfill. Plus, I help my parents." "Right. Max is such a wonderful son. You leave the rent to me and secretly save all this money. It's easy for you. You only cover the rent. You hardly ever entertain, yet you ask me for money while supporting your parents. Stop it. You married into this. It's only right for you to respect me and my parents. What's more, be grateful I haven't divorced you for being so useless," Max yelled, grabbing my hand and pushing me out the door. "Hey, no sushi for you. Go cool off outside." I never expected to be kicked out. After standing there in shock for a while, I ended up spending the night in a business hotel. The next day, when I returned home, only Max was there. I was relieved the in-laws were gone. But then Max handed me a piece of paper. It was a mutual agreement statement, stating that if I didn't obey him, we would divorce. "What's this?" "Listen, if you keep complaining, we're getting divorced. If you don't want that, just obey me silently. I'll take charge of the savings from now on," Max declared, flaunting the bank book. Then he got ready to leave. "Where are you going?" "Out for a drink." "What? Do you have a problem? Want a divorce?" He taunted with a smirk and left. Such a foolish man. Did he really think threatening divorce would make me comply? My love for Max had completely vanished. Besides, did he seriously think there was still money left in the account he emptied? I had already withdrawn it all and moved it to another account. I felt uneasy keeping a large sum in one place, so I had multiple accounts. The bank book Max took was just one of them. I signed the paper without hesitation. Max's attempt at a threat didn't faze me. It was exactly what I desired. Quickly, I packed my belongings and left the house. I spent another night at a business hotel, and the following day, I took a day off work to file for divorce as soon as the city office opened. Then, I headed straight to a real estate agency. The previous night, while browsing on my phone at the hotel, I stumbled upon a property that caught my attention. A newly built detached family home near the station, perfect for commuting. It was almost love at first sight. The exterior and interior matched what I had envisioned. After viewing it, I made the decision to purchase the house on the spot. From then on, everything happened in a whirlwind. Staying in a business hotel until the move became too costly, so I explained my situation and stayed with a friend while getting ready for the new house. I had to start from scratch with furniture and other arrangements. Amid the whirlwind of activity, I completely forgot about my ex-husband and former in-laws. "Hey, Cassie!" Max's voice startled me one day when he showed up at my workplace. "Oh, right, we work at the same company." As Max loudly called my name, drawing everyone's attention, he approached me without hesitation. "Why haven't you been returning my calls?" "Oh, I didn't think they were important," I replied, remembering Max's persistent calls. I was preoccupied and didn't want the hassle, so I ignored them. "You withdrew money from the account on your own, didn't you? Stop playing around. And why haven't you come back home? Do you really want to get divorced?" "It's fine," I replied nonchalantly. "We're already divorced, and that money in the account is mine, so I can do as I please with it," I stated firmly. Max still seemed to view the word divorce as a threat. My casual response left him looking bewildered. "What a silly expression. It's almost comical. What divorce? You mean you graciously offered it to me, and I graciously accepted," I remarked. "What? I don't accept this," Max protested. "Whether you accept it or not, the divorce is final." "Oh, and I've already informed the company and completed all the necessary procedures. You might have some paperwork to handle, so make sure to report it to your boss, okay?" With that, I redirected my attention to my computer. "I'm busy." "Where are you living now? You left your belongings at the house," Max inquired. "I took what I needed. I'm comfortably settled in with new things I bought. Don't worry about me. And as for your whereabouts, that's none of your concern. This is a matter of privacy, so please refrain from prying any further," I replied firmly. With that, Max fell silent. Eventually, feeling the weight of the stares from my colleagues and boss, Max left the department without saying another word. "Cassie's been through a lot," my colleagues sympathized. The comfort of my new home was unparalleled. The scent of a freshly built house was unforgettable. It was spacious and cozy. However, having just moved in, there were still many things I needed. Today, I was anticipating the delivery of some appliances I had ordered online. Then the intercom rang. "Ah, it must be here," I thought as I went to open the door. I immediately regretted it. I cursed myself for not checking the intercom. Standing before me was Mother. Technically, my former mother-in-law, but the words slipped out in my surprise. There she stood, accompanied by my former father-in-law. And further back, Max was lingering. "Long time no see, Cassie." "I'm coming in," Mother announced. "Wait, hold on," I protested, taken aback. My former mother-in-law barged into the house and began inspecting it as if assessing its value. "Oh, this property is quite nice. And this furniture is lovely. Move it to my room, will you? Oh, there's a basement too." "Excellent. Then this will be our room," she declared. Excuse me, but what's with these curtains? Dreadful taste. I'll choose new ones for you, so hand over the money," she continued. "The garden is quite spacious. Perhaps I'll start a vegetable garden." What were these people going on about? Confused, I turned to Max. "Max, what is?" "Be grateful, Cassie," Max interjected. I was about to confront them when my former mother-in-law cut in with irritation. I looked at her smug expression. It's not much of a house, but as a gift for the parents, it's decent. If it's a two-family home, we'll move in. Of course, as the wife, you'll do the housework. We'll be generous and only ask for $1,000 a month for our allowance." What? What on earth is she saying? Are they from another planet? I couldn't comprehend and just tilted my head. As the wife, I'm single now, you know. I added, surprising both my former mother-in-law and myself. Max, you didn't tell them? I questioned. I don't accept it, Max shouted. But it didn't matter whether he accepted it or not. The divorce was final. We were complete strangers now. Upon hearing my declaration, my former mother-in-law's face paled. What do you mean you're abandoning us? Your parents. My parents live in the countryside. I was planning to invite them over soon, she protested. Don't joke around. This house is ours, she insisted. No, it's mine, I retorted. What was she thinking? This house was purchased with my savings in my name. Then where are we supposed to live? She demanded. I don't know. That's not my problem, I replied, feeling the weight of their expectations. Apparently, they had already sold their house and the contract was finalized. They planned to live a comfortable life in this house with the money from the sale and whatever they could extort from me. It was a frightening plan. I don't accept this. My former mother-in-law continued to protest. But it doesn't matter. We're strangers now, and this house is mine. I won't accept it, absolutely not, I asserted firmly. In her anger, my former mother-in-law ripped the curtains. Hey, what are you doing? These things I don't need, such bad taste. This is my house. I'll dim as I please, I snapped back. That's right. What's yours is mine. Everything you own is mine, she insisted. Listen, I don't accept this divorce, and both my parents and I are going to live here, Max shouted out. Oh no, this is getting out of hand, I thought, just as I heard sirens. I had secretly called the police when Max and my former mother-in-law barged into the house. Finally, the police arrived. What are you doing? We haven't done anything wrong, they protested. That's right. If anyone should be taken, it's this woman, my former mother-in-law added. After a scene, they weren't arrested but were escorted away by the police. It had been a tumultuous day. After being released, Max continued to come by, insisting on reconciliation and getting picked up by the police each time. He even followed me to work. So after consulting with my boss, George, he received the stern warning. Misusing his wife's savings and assaulting her new home became the talk of the office, leading to an uncomfortable working environment for Max. His resignation seemed to affect him mentally, and he struggled to find new employment. My former in-laws, having sold their house, moved into the cheap apartment where Max and I had lived. It was an old, poorly maintained place, so it wouldn't have fetched much money. With the money from the sale, it seems like the three of them will be able to live modestly. Finally free from all the drama, I'm relishing the comfort of my own home. Although I offered to have my parents from the countryside move in with me, they're not quite ready to make the move yet. So, for the time being, I'm enjoying the solitude of living alone. Perhaps I'll consider remarrying if the right person comes along. But for now, I'm content. One of the first things on my agenda is to get a dog, something I couldn't do while living in the apartment. I also have plans to try my hand at gardening and to host home parties with friends. As I gaze out the window at the blue sky, I think about all the things I couldn't do before and how I want to embrace and enjoy life from now on. Why did someone get buried in the garden? I quickly covered my daughter's mouth as she blurted out the question. It was supposed to be a happy day celebrating our new house. I worried Ruby, the host, might react badly if my daughter embarrassed her. My brother had warned me about Ruby's temper. Thankfully, I managed to smooth things over. Later, as we were leaving, I found my daughter chatting with something by the flower bed. Suddenly, Ruby swung a bat at her. Sarah, I cried out, reaching for her. My name is Avon. I'm 35, and I live with my 5-year-old daughter, Sarah. My husband works away, so we see him rarely. It gets lonely without him. Thankfully, my parents live close by, just a 5-minute drive away. We visit them often, but sometimes there are issues when we go over. Yvonne, there's a problem again? You're here so often, Yvonne. Isn't that too much? It's pointless for you to stay married. Those sharp words were from Ruby, my sister-in-law. My parents, along with my older brother Eugene and his wife Ruby, were living together temporarily. Eugene was building a new house, so they stayed with our parents until it was ready. Even if your husband's away, are you relying on your parents too much? Ruby, a year older than me, wasn't necessarily mean, but she was assertive and a bit snarky. I've never liked her, not since she started dating my brother. I still don't get what he sees in her. I never understood why she was so tough on me, her sister-in-law. Plus, she didn't seem to enjoy kids, especially my daughter. "Grandma, let's play," Sarah said, pulling my mother's hand excitedly. Ruby made a clearly annoyed face. It's exhausting when Sarah's here. She's so noisy. "Yvonne, you really need to discipline her more. It'll create problems later on." Those comments always made me uneasy. I'd only visited because Sarah wanted to see her grandparents, but Ruby's remarks always gave me a headache. The second issue was about my daughter, Sarah. She has a strange ability to see things others can't and sense certain things. At first, we didn't believe it, but after she accurately found lost items and other eerie incidents, we started to accept it. It was a family secret we kept hidden. I never thought it would come out like this. Finally, the long cohabitation was ending. My brother and his wife's new house was ready, and they were moving out soon. I was looking forward to it. Living together had been tough. Ruby whispered to me, and I could only manage a weak smile. It wasn't just hard for her. I was relieved our parents' home would finally be peaceful. My daughter looked at me curiously. "Mom, why do you act differently around Ruby? You're more relaxed with Grandma and Eugene." "Well, you see, Eugene and I grew up together, but Ruby only recently joined our family through marriage." My daughter seemed unsure. "Sorry, was that confusing?" "No, I understand, but it's sad." "Sad?" I asked, puzzled. Sarah nodded. "It's sad that we finally became a family, and now we're going to be separated again soon." When Sarah speaks like that, it's oddly convincing. Separated. Could it be that Eugene and his wife are getting divorced? While it would be a relief for me, I feel bad for Eugene if he's upset. So they just finished building their new house, and now the idea of them divorcing so soon is hard to grasp. I couldn't understand it, so I simply asked Sarah to promise not to talk about it elsewhere and decided not to think about it too much. Some time after Eugene and his wife moved, we got an invitation to their housewarming party. We wrapped a nice gift of money, and the 5 of us, including my parents, Sarah, and me, went over. Eugene's house was about a 20-minute drive from our parents' place. Since my small car couldn't fit all 5 of us, we had to use my father's car. It was an old manual transmission, which made me nervous, but my father is a safer driver than I am, so it should be fine. "It's pretty impressive to me that you can drive a stick shift," I said to him. When we arrived, I was immediately struck by the beauty of the place. It was a brand new build indeed. The exterior alone was impressive. The yard was spacious, and there was even a new flower bed near the bay window. There weren't any flowers yet, just soil, but it was still impressive. "Wow, it's so big," Sarah exclaimed, running around the yard with joy. "Hey, Sarah," I called out, trying to catch up to her, but Eugene stopped me. "Let her play. It's okay if she wants to enjoy the big yard." "Oh, thank you," I replied, trusting Eugene's judgment. I kept an eye on Sarah to make sure she stayed safe. While she stayed in the yard, Sarah wouldn't get lost or bother anyone. I found myself daydreaming about having a house of our own when Ruby came over, loudly reprimanding us from a distance. "Hey, Yvonne, you should be keeping a closer eye on Sarah." "Oh, did she do something?" Sarah had been playing around, but she hadn't caused any trouble. I couldn't recall anything that would upset Ruby, but she seemed angry. Is it normal to let kids run wild at a housewarming? It's quite disruptive, don't you think? "I'm sorry, Eugene said it was fine, so I thought it was okay." That's just Eugene being too polite to say anything. Don't take it personally. I couldn't afford to upset Ruby further. I had seen Eugene endure Ruby's outbursts many times before. I apologize. I'll make sure she behaves. I went after Sarah, who had just dashed past me. As I approached, I found her crouched by the flower bed, staring intently. All she could see was dirt. No flowers had bloomed yet. What's so fascinating, Sarah? What are you doing? When I asked from above, my daughter looked up and said, "Why is there a person buried in the garden?" What? After a moment to process her words, I instinctively covered my daughter's mouth. Of all things, she had to say that here, during my brother and his wife's housewarming. It was meant to be a joyous occasion, but if Sarah said something inappropriate, it could cause trouble. Ruby had a temper, as my brother had warned me. It seemed my brother had heard, but fortunately, Ruby was engrossed in conversation with Mom and hadn't noticed. "Look, Sarah, what a lovely house. Isn't it beautiful? Let's go inside." I caught my brother's eye, his expression mixed, and tried to distract my daughter as we moved. I kept my hand over her mouth, but Sarah squirmed free and said, "Mom, it's strange. Why aren't we helping the person buried in the garden?" "Sarah, it's okay. I'll talk to Eugene." Sarah slipped away and ran to my brother, grabbing his hand and pulling him toward the flower bed. Seeing the look on my brother's face, who knows? Sarah's determination spoke volumes. "Sarah, do you see something by the flower bed?" Sarah looks up at my brother, tilting her head. "Yeah, Eugene, can't you see? We need to help them quickly. They're calling for Ruby, asking for her." This caught both my brother and me off guard, and we exchanged surprised glances. Ruby was still engrossed in conversation with Mom. Ruby's name? Right here. My brother and I approached the flower bed. Upon closer inspection, the soil Sarah pointed to had a slightly different color, as if it had been disturbed before. A shiver ran down my spine as a chilling thought crossed my mind. What should we do, Eugene? We can't just ignore what Sarah said. Not because she's a child, but because it's Sarah. My brother fetched a small gardening spade from the back of the house. It seemed inadequate for digging, but it was all we had. When we tapped the soil, it felt unnaturally hard, as if something had been compacted to conceal it. My brother, perhaps frightened, was cautious and couldn't apply much force with the spade. Impatiently, Sarah grabbed the spade from him. "Eugene, you're not good at this. Let me do it." "Sarah, wait," I said, reaching out to stop her. But Ruby grabbed Sarah's wrist before I could react. Ruby had approached unnoticed and squatted down to Sarah's level, smiling brightly. "Hey, Sarah, don't touch my special flower garden." Relieved at Ruby's cheerful demeanor, I pulled Sarah closer. "That's right, Sarah. You can't touch things without permission. Sorry, Ruby." "No problem, but don't touch it again. Ever." I sensed an unusual intensity in Ruby's demeanor. I lowered my head again, attempting to escape to my mother, Yvonne, with Sarah in tow. But Sarah pointed at the flower bed once more and exclaimed, "Look, that person is watching Ruby over there." "Sarah, you might scare Ruby with that talk. Please don't say such things." Whenever Sarah said something like this before, it left people pale and trembling. I imagined Ruby must be terrified to hear such things about our new home. "Apologies, Ruby. It's just a misunderstanding by Sarah." I tried to make amends, glancing at Ruby's face. Despite any dislike I harbored for her, I felt sorry for frightening her. I thought I needed my brother Eugene to smooth things over, but Ruby's expression caught my breath. Instead of fear, her eyes were wide with anger. "Sarah, is someone really watching me?" "Yes, and they're asking for your help," Sarah replied. Ruby simply scoffed and smirked, but her eyes betrayed no amusement. For some reason, Ruby's expression filled me with dread, and I shivered. "I'm sorry, Ruby. It's fine. Just kids being kids," Ruby dismissed, though her tone lacked warmth. Eugene swiftly intervened between me and Ruby, diffusing the tension for the moment. We entered the new house with our parents and settled onto the plush new couch. "Wow, it's so comfy," Sarah exclaimed. Her spirits lifted in the new surroundings as she sank into the couch happily. It seemed she had completely forgotten the earlier incident, and I felt relieved. We ordered some sushi for takeout, chatting, and enjoying the meal. Sarah must have been tired from all the excitement because before long, she had fallen asleep on the couch. "Would you like to take her upstairs to bed?" Should Eugene carry her? Really? Thank you. That would be helpful. We still have some time before we head back. It might be better than her sleeping in the busy living room. Initially, I thought so too, but then I had a bad feeling. I think it's fine. She might feel lonely waking up alone. Oh, she's already 5, isn't she? She'll be fine. She can sleep here. Yvonne, you're a bit overprotective, aren't you? Ruby murmured, smoothly returning to the conversation with my brother and parents. Despite the brief exchange, I couldn't stop sweating. After a while, Sarah woke up. It's almost time to leave. We agreed with our dad and started preparing to go home. As I cleaned up the table and washed the cups, my daughter tugged on my clothes. Hey, Mom, are we leaving now? Just a little longer, okay? We'll be leaving soon. You're being impatient. Maybe it was because she had just woken up, but Sarah seemed a bit cranky. I didn't want to deal with a tantrum right now, so I decided to ask my mother for help. Mom, could you please rinse these? Sarah is getting grumpy. My mother hurried over, but Ruby blocked her. Then how about Sarah and I play in the yard while we wait? In the yard? Let's do that. My daughter lit up at the idea of going outside. More than that, I was surprised that Ruby invited her to play. She wasn't known to be fond of children, so I was puzzled but grateful. Thank you, Ruby, but we're getting ready to head home. It's just until you leave. It's fine. Come on, Sarah, let's go. Yeah. Sarah cheerfully replied, taking Ruby's hand as they left. It's odd. Ruby isn't usually interested in children, Eugene remarked, watching them go with a puzzled expression. I know, right? Sarah and Ruby have met many times, but I've never seen them play together. Sarah isn't shy around strangers and would happily approach Ruby, but I always thought Ruby kept her distance. Yet today, Ruby was the one who initiated. Something felt off. I'm going outside too, I announced, rushing out in a hurry. Sarah was squatting in front of the flower bed, engaged in conversation. Ruby was nowhere to be seen. Intrigued, I slowed my pace and hurried over to her. Then, in the next moment, I witnessed Ruby swinging a baseball bat at Sarah's head with all her strength. It was a terrifying moment. I grabbed my daughter's arm, and we both stumbled backward. A metallic clang reverberated through the yard as the bat struck where Sarah had been just moments before. Eugene and my parents rushed outside upon hearing the noise. What was that, Ruby? Eugene, shocked at the sight of Ruby holding the bat, inquired. My heart raced as I held Sarah tightly. It had been too close. If I had been a moment later, Sarah could have. I couldn't even bring myself to think about it. I glanced up at Ruby, her expression a mix of anger and perhaps indifference. What happened? Eugene asked suspiciously. Ruby, did you try to hit Sarah with the bat? I can't believe it. Eugene approached Ruby in disbelief. Is it true, Ruby? Why would you? Ruby simply smirked. Come on, Yvonne. It was just a joke. Anger surged within me, and I retorted, a joke? Are you serious? If that had hit her, do you realize what could have happened? It wouldn't have been a mere injury. As I spoke, I noticed something horrific. The end of the baseball bat was stained with something dark red. Catching my gaze, Ruby exhaled. Sarah started it, didn't she? She shouldn't have said what she did. My eyes were drawn involuntarily to the flower bed. Could it be true? Was there really someone buried beneath, as my daughter had claimed? Fear gripped me, making my teeth chatter. My brother, concerned, kept me and Sarah away from Ruby. What's going on, Ruby? It's nothing serious, just a joke. Maybe I went too far. My brother gazed at Ruby for a moment, then decisively went to the back of the yard. He grabbed a small shovel and started digging up the flower bed Sarah had pointed out earlier. Hey, Eugene, what are you doing? Ruby tried to intervene, but she couldn't stop my brother. He kept digging until he unearthed something, leaving him speechless and clutching his head. Ruby collapsed weakly beside him. Eugene, Yvonne, call the police, he said urgently. Quickly take Sarah and go home. From my brother's unusual behavior, I realized Sarah's words were true. He had found something Sarah had mentioned, I immediately dialed the police. Surprisingly, Ruby remained subdued until the police arrived. She repeated, "It's all over," as if in a daze, but she didn't become furious or try to escape. Once the police arrived, I decided to stay with my brother while leaving my daughter with my parents. My mother was too frightened to accompany us, and although my father offered to stay, we would then be without a driver. "I'll be fine alone," I insisted, though it wasn't entirely true. I couldn't leave my brother by himself. "Sarah, listen to Grandma and Grandpa and wait here, okay?" "Okay, Mommy. Take care of Eugene too." "Of course." I couldn't gauge how much my daughter understood, but I reassured her with a smile. My brother appeared to be conversing calmly with the officer. I observed from a corner of the yard so as not to interfere. Suddenly, Ruby's voice erupted in anger. "I've already told you, I don't know anything." "Fine, let's go to the station and I'll explain everything there." "You're just trying to blame me? I won't go." The officer looked puzzled by Ruby's outburst. A female officer attempted to grab Ruby's arm, but she shook her off and sought refuge behind my brother. "Eugene, help me." My brother, visibly flustered, held Ruby's shoulder but remained conflicted, neither embracing her nor pushing her away. "I didn't do anything wrong. It's a false accusation." Though my brother may have wanted to believe Ruby, her recent actions, like swinging a baseball bat at Sarah, suggested otherwise. "Is someone watching me?" "Yeah, they're asking for Ruby's help." Ruby's response was a cynical "ha," with no trace of a smile in her eyes. Her demeanor sent a chill down my spine, and I shuddered. "I'm sorry, Ruby. It's okay. It's just kids' stuff." Eugene quickly intervened between me and Ruby, momentarily diffusing the tension. We retreated into the new house with our parents, settling onto the plush couch. Wow, it's so comfy. Sarah's mood seemed to brighten in the new surroundings as she happily sank into the couch. She appeared to have forgotten the earlier incident, bringing a sense of relief. We ordered some takeout sushi, engaging in light conversation while eating. Sarah must have been exhausted from all the excitement, as she soon drifted off to sleep on the couch. "Would you like to put her to bed upstairs? Should Eugene carry her?" "Really? Thank you. That would be helpful. We still have some time before we head back. It might be better than her sleeping in the busy living room." Initially, I thought so too. But then I had a bad feeling. "I think it's fine. She might feel lonely waking up alone." "Oh, she's already 5, isn't she? She'll be fine. She can sleep here." "Yvonne, you're a bit overprotective, aren't you?" Ruby murmured, seamlessly rejoining the conversation with my brother and parents. Despite the brief exchange, I couldn't shake off my nervousness. Soon after, Sarah woke up. "It's time to leave." We agreed with our dad and began preparing to head home. As I tidied up the table and washed the cups, Sarah tugged on my clothes. "Mom, are we leaving yet?" "Just a little longer, okay? We'll be leaving soon. You're being a bit impatient." Sarah seemed a bit cranky, perhaps due to just waking up. Not wanting to deal with a potential tantrum, I asked my mother for help. "Mom, could you please rinse these?" "Sarah is getting a bit grumpy." My mother hurried over, but Ruby blocked her. "How about Sarah and I play in the yard while we wait?" "In the yard? Yes, let's do that." Sarah was thrilled at the idea of going outside. I was surprised that Ruby invited her to play. "Thank you, Ruby, but we're getting ready to head home. It's just until you leave." "It's fine. Come on, let's go, Sarah." "Yeah," Sarah cheerfully replied, taking Ruby's hand, and they left. "It's odd. Ruby isn't usually fond of children," Eugene remarked, watching them go with a stunned expression. "I agree. Ruby and my daughter have met many times, but I've never seen them play together. Sarah isn't shy with strangers and would happily approach Ruby, but I always thought Ruby kept her distance. Yet today, Ruby was the one who initiated. Something didn't feel right to me. I decided to go outside too. I rushed out hurriedly. Sarah was squatting in front of the flower bed, engaged in conversation. Ruby was nowhere to be seen. Intrigued, I slowed my pace and ran over to her. Then, in the next moment, I witnessed Ruby swinging a baseball bat at Sarah's head with all her might. It was a terrifying moment. I grabbed my daughter's arm, and we both stumbled backward. A metallic clang reverberated through the yard as the bat struck where Sarah